Deze video is mede mogelijk gemaakt door Global Joy Media Groep.
First off, if you've read the program and thought there was a typo and you're expecting the CEO of Google to be presenting, I apologize that I am not he, nor am I related to Erica Schmidt of Google. But certainly I've been in the search industry for about 10 years now. I'm part of iProspect, which is a global search engine marketing agency. Forrester Research has accredited us as being the by far the largest in breadth and scope of any search engine marketing agency out there in the world. And Check It is our local brand and part of the iProspect network. Okay, so for today I have some fun video content as well as some stories that I'd like to tell you about search and how search relates to the international mix and overall from a marketing perspective how search should be integrated. I've been doing search for quite some time now, and as a result of that we often tend to get a little bit of tunnel vision. We have search geeks and search nerds who really get specialized, but I think it's important to think about search in that overall context. Okay, so the first one, not sure how many of you have seen this commercial, and I apologize if you have, but probably for the first time ever, we saw a commercial from Google that ran in the United States during the Super Bowl. And for those of you who aren't aware, because I think sometimes Americans, we have this concept that when we have our sporting activities that the rest of the world cares, which they really don't. So we have that mindset, but the Super Bowl is our largest sporting activity of the year. It has great viewership, and typically speaking, it's the most expensive spot that you could buy on an annual basis from a television commercial perspective. For the first time ever, Google actually ran a commercial. And if we think about Google and the history of Google, the way that they really got their name was by their own reputation and word of mouth. So a user would try Google for the first time and say, this was by far the best search engine out there. And you'd tell a friend, and then that friend would start using it, and then Google became synonymous with search. So I'd like you to pay careful attention to this commercial, even if you've seen it before, because there's quite a lot of points that I'd like to pull out from it and also to entertain you a little bit. So with that, we'll go to YouTube, which just actually, I'm sure most of you know this, celebrated its 5-year anniversary. 20 minutes of content is uploaded every minute on YouTube, and if you wanted to watch all of the content that exists on YouTube, and they're here, so I'm sure they could validate that, it would actually take 2 centuries, so 200 years worth of content on YouTube alone to date. And hopefully this will all go off without a hitch.
Hello. Bonjour.
Très très mignon. Allô?
Le commandant et toute son équipe espèrent que vous avez passé un agréable.
Is anybody wiping a tear from their eye like I do every time I see that commercial, even though I've seen it about 30 times? Oh, I don't know what's just happened. Somebody's added on to it. So basically, the really interesting thing, well, there's a number of interesting things that come out of this commercial. First of all, it's actually a user-generated content. So somebody went onto Google and created their own search story, and the marketing folks at Google found it so compelling that they turned it and chose it as their commercial. Now, as a user, you could go onto YouTube and you could create your own Google search story. There's quite a lot of spoofs on this one in terms of making fun of Tiger Woods and, you know, sort of the searches that he might have been doing during all of his escapades in the past few years. What's really compelling about this commercial is obviously it tugs at the emotional heartstrings. We know Google is about so much more. If you look at this, it's actually a slide from Google. Google's mission is to organize all the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Now, if we think about that context, back in the day when I started doing search, it was about just 2 blue links. And how did we get a website into the Google search results and to rank at the top of the results. Now it's no longer just about those 2 blue links. It's about optimizing every possible asset that you have in your arsenal that's digital or offline in nature that can be picked up and recognized by Google and to show up. And Google's done a really fantastic job of bringing all this information into their search index. So now when you conduct a query, you could possibly find news results, you find mapping results, local information, blog results, book results, for example, because they're scanning quite a lot of books right now, and Google Book Search is quite useful. So Google is really pushing an emphasis on how they're gathering all this information. But if we think about this commercial, it was still about core search, textual-based search, as well as most of the user activity that happened in this commercial was all on organic search results. And just to clarify that statement, when you look at the composition of a search engine results page, there's advertisements. So usually they're the first 1, 2, or 3 results. They'll be highlighted as such as being sponsored, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see sponsored links. And then the rest of the composition of the page is what we call organic search listings, meaning that the sites or the content that's deemed most relevant by the Google algorithm is what is going to show up most prominently. But Google put an emphasis in this commercial mainly on the organic search results, not on their paid search results, where 97% of their revenue is actually coming from. So just an interesting juxtaposition. But I think what they were trying to do is they have some competition of late. I know it wouldn't necessarily apply here, where Google has about 93 or 94% market share in the Dutch landscape. But when Microsoft released Bing, it was the first search engine that they've released over the past 10 years that resonated with the consumer base, and Google's starting to get some competition from Bing. So as a result, they're trying to highlight to users that Google can help you in all kinds of things, and they've tried to impact that emotional quotient of things as well. Hopefully you can still all hear me. Yeah, it's so loud. Quite the hall. And how do we translate that into what we think about from a marketing perspective? So typically speaking, when marketers go out and they think about communications, it's about what is my message? How am I going to resonate with consumers? And then which media platforms am I going to use to ensure that my message gets out there and that I target the right audience? Well, the way that we think about media now, and this really translates from a search perspective, is it's not just paying for placement in the Google auction. It's also about getting the right visibility for your owned assets, whether it's a television commercial or it's a press release announcing your latest product offering, or if it's something around local information. Google actually publicly acknowledges that 1 in 5 queries on their search engine are local in nature. So that could be postal code plus a query, city name plus a hotel, or you're looking for your closest Starbucks, which I was looking for at 6 o'clock this morning. So that turns into thinking about how do we get all those owned assets in there. And then finally, we have the social space, right? So social media is a hot topic. I'm sure it's a buzz topic on the floors of this very conference, where people are talking about this element of earned media. All 3 of those should really come into placement in the space of the Google search results and the overall context of search. So I wanted to share another one. I'm sure most of you have seen this. Again, it's early, well, relatively early in the morning, so I'll share another commercial with you very quickly here.